Right, so as I said before, the Westeros phase happens as the first thing on the turn, apart from on the first turn, because you have the initial setup on the first turn. But what the Westeros phase does, there's 3 different packs of cards. You draw a card from each of them, and the first pack has things like supply in, or mustering, or nothing happens. And what obviously supply and mustering are very important, because this is how you get new troops in the game. Mustering gives you new troops, and supply determines how big your armies can get. So let's have a look at the actual units in this game. You've got your lowly footman. He is combat strength 1. Then you've got a knight. He is combat strength 2. Then you've got the ships. They're combat strength 1. And we will be playing with something that was added in the 2nd edition of the game, which is siege engines. And there's various rules about them, but basically they're combat strength 4, but they only work in certain situations, so we'll see about that later. Now, all these units are worth 1 when it comes to supply. Okay, they're worth different amounts in combat, but in terms of supply, they're 1 unit each. And you can have any number of units so long as they're only 1 in the area. Okay, so when we look at the supply track, this tells us how big our forces can get in terms of units, not combat strength, units, when they're gathered together. But if they're on their own, so this chap sitting in Yoren Wood on, it's Yoren Wood, on his own, he can just live off the land because he's on his own. But the guys in Highgarden gathered together there, they're going to count to my supply track, because the army gathered together needs a lot of feeding. And the ship out there, he's fine because he's on his own. So what we have here on the supply track, if we have a look, Highgarden has 3 supply, and the supply is determined by the barrels. Supply is determined by the barrels. So there's a barrel here, there's some barrels there. So that's the initial setup for Highgarden, gives them 3 barrels. Tyrell, I should say. Always say Highgarden for this. And 3 barrels means they can have 1 army that is 3 units big, and they can have 3 separate armies which are 2 units big. And if they want bigger armies than that, well, they're going to have to get some more supply barrels and gradually move up. Once you get to 6, you can't go any higher, which means your max size army is 1 of 4 units. Now what those units are up to you. They could be 4 siege engines, or they could be 4 knights, or they could be a mixture. It's up to you, but what combination you choose is going to have a different combat strength. Okay, so supply is very important, because you can't muster troops if you haven't got enough supply to feed them, and you can't even gather troops together if you haven't got enough supply to have them in one place. So you have to keep an eye on the supply track. And the Westeros phase is when you change things like troops and supply. So if supply comes up, everyone counts their barrels and they adjust the supply track. If mustering comes up, you start to get troops out from the box and put them where you've got your castles and strongholds. And the rule for this is that each stronghold provides 2 mustering points worth of troops, and each castle, the smaller ones, only provides 1 mustering point. And a footman, he's worth 1 mustering point, a knight is worth 2, a siege engine is worth 2, and a ship is worth 1. And you can actually upgrade a footman to a knight or a siege engine for 1 mustering point. So how mustering works is on the Iron Throne track, that's the turn order. The first player will select one of his castles, and then they'll say what they're putting down, so footman, knight or something. Okay, and then we go to the next player. And so you keep going round until everyone's done a castle, and then House Baratheon will do their second castle. Everyone keeps going round until they run out of strongholds and castles, and then the orders will go down. So that is mustering and supply, and also a brief overview of the units. Other things that happen in the second pack, you have cards like a Game of Thrones, which is just giving everyone power tokens. I'll explain a bit about power tokens in a second, but you can collect power tokens for the crowns you have on the board. And then the most important one in the second pack is Clash of Kings. And what Clash of Kings does is it starts a bidding process to change your position on the various political tracks. So, as I said earlier on, these political tracks are very important in the game. The first one is determining the turn order of the game. So if you want to move ahead of your opponent, then you're going to want to be high up at the top. But sometimes it's a good idea to be behind your opponent if you want to see what he's doing and then counter it. Depends what game you're playing. The fiefdoms track, that decides draws, so you want to be high up on this to win your battles, and if it's close, it could be a draw. And then the bottom track is using special orders. The special orders are just like the ordinary orders, but slightly better. So, for instance, like the defense special order is +2 rather than +1, and the attack special order is +1 rather than +0 or something like that. There's also a bonus for the person who gets the #1 spot, and these are the tokens which the pictures are shown of there. And here's the actual Iron Throne token, there's the Valyrian Steelblade and the Messenger Raven tokens, and these will do special things for those players on their turn. The Iron Throne token, that player gets to determine draws in any of the bidding processes throughout the game. So the only, in fact, any draw in the game, apart from one in battle, which is the Valyrian Steelblade power, but any other draw, the person who's got the Iron Throne, they'll decide who wins. Okay, then we've got the Valyrian Steel as your top spot. You beat everyone in a draw, but also once per turn you can add +1 combat strength to any of your battles once per turn. So that's very powerful, especially if you're one behind on combat strength, then this will bring you equal to them, and then because you win in draws, you'll win the battle. And lastly, the Messenger Raven, that allows you to swap one of your orders after you've seen what everyone else has put down. So all very powerful to be in the #1 spot, and all this is decided by the Clash of Kings card starting off the bidding process. So I'm going to have to touch on the power tokens now, because power tokens are what you use to do your bidding. So everyone starts with 5, they have your little house symbol on it, so this is House Tyrell's power token, and you can collect them using the Consolidate Power Order, or if Game of Thrones card comes up, you get power tokens. And everyone has to say how many they have before the bidding starts. So I've got 7 here, and you always bid on the Iron Throne first, then you bid on the fiefdoms, then you bid on the King's Court. And whatever you use in your bid is used up, so you've got to save some if you want to bid on the King's Court, otherwise you're going to end up with none by the time it gets around to there. And so all players decide how much they're going to bid. They hold it in their fist out in front of them, and then it's all revealed at once, and everyone sees who gets what on the positions. And any draws, well, the person who has the Iron Throne token decides who wins in draws. Then you move on to the fiefdoms. Everyone says how many power tokens they have again, and then again everyone bids, holds out their hand, and those tokens are then used up, and so everyone's tokens will go down, and you see who wins on the fiefdoms, and draws are again decided by the Iron Throne holder. And then you bid on the King's Court, and everything similar happens there. So that's one use of the power tokens. That's their main use. There's two more uses. If you want to leave an area, so if I want to move out of the Dornish Marshes, but I still want to keep in control of the Dornish Marshes, I can leave a power token behind, and that's showing to all players that the Dornish Marshes are mine. Now if another player comes in, that power token is destroyed, okay? But I will have all the benefits while my power token is there. You can never pick up power tokens if you move troops in. That's not possible. It's always going to stay there unless an enemy moves in. Okay, obviously any place that has your own troops in is obviously yours, and your starting place has like a permanent power token symbol there to show that that place is yours unless another player takes it, of course. So that's the second use. The last use for the power tokens is defending against the wildlings here up north. So on the Westeros cards again, if I can find one. On the Westeros cards, some of them have this elephant symbol in the corner, and that means you move the wildlings up in strength, and they can go all the way up to 12 in strength. And one of the cards in the third pack says wildlings attack, and if the wildlings attack, then you see what strength they're on. Let's say they attack on 8 strength, and all the players have to collectively as a group bid power tokens to try and defeat the wildlings. And if collectively as a group you bid the same or more power tokens than the wildling strength, so if as a group we bid 8 or more, then the players have won, hooray! And the person who bid the most power tokens, they get a little bonus, which we'll discuss later on. But if the players don't manage to defeat the wildlings, some people being selfish and holding on to their power tokens, or even tactical, then what will happen is all the players will lose a certain amount of troops, and the player who bid the least amount of power tokens, they lose the most amount of troops, which can be devastating, especially early on when you haven't got a lot of troops in the game. Okay, so that was a bit about power tokens. We're still on the Westeros cards, kind of doing all the rules amalgamated in. The Westeros cards say things like this turn you can't use consolidate power, or this turn you can't use defense orders, or wildlings attack. So they'll do things like restrict various things you can do on your turn, and it's random which card comes up. So there's a bit, I guess the Westeros cards are the only element of randomness in this game. Players bidding is a bit more strategic because you can everyone knows how many power tokens people have, so you can it's a bit of poker luck or poker logic on how much people might bid on certain things. And of course there can be upsets and things like that. There's something I forgot to mention earlier. A couple of places on the board have neutral forces, so this is Sunspear, where the Dawn family live. There's a strength 5 token there. There's King's Landing on strength 5 and the Eyrie on strength 6. And those neutral forces can be defeated by the players as long as they have equal or more strength to defeat them, and then they're removed from the game. So it's just stopping really a massive rush from Baratheon and Highgarden into these areas. So they have to take some time to build up their strength to get those. Right, let's have a look at combat. Yeah, let's have a look at a combat.